The chandelier over Leonard's main dining room threw little crescents of light across the marble like coins tossed into a fountain. Ana Martinez adjusted her black server's jacket for the third time and told her hands, calm, steady, invisible, to do what they always did: move, smile, disappear. Being unseen was a skill, and at 24 she'd perfected it. Glide past the hedge fund birthdays and the anniversary flutes of Dom, refill, clear, nod, vanish. The rich liked their service like their glassware, silent and spotless. "Table 12 needs their wine," called Sarah, the head waitress, not looking up from her pad. "And try not to spill on Mr. Blackwood. He's already complained about the aircon twice." "On it," Anna said, lifting a bottle of Chateau Margaux that cost more than her monthly rent and pinning the label toward her palm. Marcus Blackwood. Even the name sounded lacquered, old money with new edges. She'd worked his table 3 months and could have drawn the map of his preferences from memory. Scotch neat for him, Pellegrino for his mother, entrecôte medium rare, extra napkin for the mother's hands. He never really looked at her. Men like him didn't have to. Leonard's hummed with conversations pitched to that private school register where people never worried about co-pays or eviction notices. Anna had once known that world, or the edges of it, when name badges and clean data rooms had felt like stair steps to a future she'd designed. That was before her life shrank to a studio in Queens, a locker for spare shoes, and the ritual of being no one. "Excuse me, miss," the voice came closer than she expected. Low, clipped, not loud enough to be rude and yet somehow commanding. She turned and found him right there, the room narrowing to steel-gray eyes and a suit that broadcast a tailor's devotion. Dark hair set just so. Cufflinks like small decisions. He was taller up close, which felt unfair. "Your wine, sir," Anna said, lifting the bottle a fraction. "Not for me." He angled his chin toward the table behind him. "My mother. She's been trying to get your attention for 10 minutes. Anna followed his glance. The elegant woman at 12 caught her eye and lifted her hands, face bright with a hopeful little smile. The gestures were subtle, but unmistakable if you knew how to see them. Oh. Without thinking, Anna set the Margaux on a side station and stepped to the woman's line of sight. Her fingertips warmed with muscle memory. "Good evening," she signed, her hands moving in clear, fluid shapes. "How may I help you?" Delight bloomed across the older woman's face. Her reply came quick and nimble like music. "I wanted to compliment the chef on the salmon. Paris, years ago. This tastes like that. I'll make sure he hears it," Anna signed back, the words loosening something in her shoulders. "Would you like to know the preparation? I think there's a special herb blend." Behind her, the room softened to a hush. It always did when something unscripted happened among people who liked predictable experiences. Anna barely noticed. She was watching the way Mrs. Blackwood's expression shifted as she talked about Paris and quiet hotels and the rare relief of being truly understood. "You're very kind," the woman signed. "Most people smile and look away when they realize I'm deaf. You sign beautifully. Where did you learn?" "Linguistics in college," Anna said before she could stop herself, the syllables slipping out like an unguarded secret. "Linguistics?" Marcus Blackwood's voice cut through the moment. Not sharp exactly, precise. He studied her like a figure he'd noticed in a painting and suddenly wanted to understand. "What university?" Heat climbed her neck. She'd practiced being forgettable for 2 years. 1 minute of honesty had cracked the mask. "Just a few classes," she murmured. "Nothing important." "Nothing important," he repeated, softer, skeptical. He stepped closer, and the room seemed to tilt toward him. "You sign fluently, you mention linguistics. My guess is that's not your only language." "What else are you hiding, Miss Martinez?" she supplied, because he would learn it anyway. Eyes were on them now, diners pretending not to stare, Sarah hovering with managerial weather in her face. Anna reached for the wine. "I should get back to work." "Wait." His hand closed gently around her wrist. Not possessive, an arrest without force. The contact pulsed through her like a live wire. Something flickered in his expression, too, the wince of someone surprised to feel anything at all. He released her quickly. "I'm sorry, that was unnecessary." He looked suddenly human up close. "The expensive watch, The manicured nails, the radius of someone's life that had never required lifting boxes or scrubbing tile. But his eyes, there was a question living there, and it made her uneasy. "Your mother is lovely," Anna said, because it was safe. "She was telling me about Paris. She likes you." He didn't step back. "She doesn't like many people." Maybe because most people don't take the time to listen. Anna heard the edge in her own voice too late. His mouth twitched. "And you think I don't? I think you're used to people telling you what you want to hear." This time the smile landed, reshaping him into someone younger, less polished. "You might be right," he tilted his head. "But you didn't answer my question about the university. Columbia." The word lived on her tongue like a dare. Mrs. Blackwood was watching, a knowing warmth in her eyes. Anna could feel the old scaffolding of her life creak, the habit of hiding, the terror of being found. She exhaled. "Columbia," she said. "I studied at Columbia." Surprise shifted to curiosity, then to something like respect. "Excellent program. What made you change careers?" The question slid under her ribs. How to explain that she hadn't chosen anything? That her life had been vacuumed out in a 5-month storm carried by a man who'd smiled while he did it? That the title on her pay stub was a disguise and a refuge, and the only job she could get after someone rewrote her name into a cautionary tale? "Sometimes life doesn't go according to plan," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Points for that." "No," he said, still studying her. "I suppose it doesn't." Mrs. Blackwood signed across his shoulder with a conspirator's light. "You two should talk. My son works too much. He needs interesting people." "What did she say?" Marcus asked, suspicion laced with amusement. "She said, 'You work very hard.'" Anna kept her face neutral. "That's not all." He folded his arms. "My mother didn't say anything about vegetables, did she?" Anna blinked. "Why would she?" "Because you're blushing like she did." He huffed a laugh, genuine and surprised enough to turn heads. "She said something designed to embarrass one of us." Anna surrendered. "She thinks you should meet more interesting people." "Does she?" He glanced at his mother, who was failing to look innocent. "And what do you think?" "Am I meeting any?" Loaded question. He stood close enough that she could smell the understated cologne, money that decided not to shout. Close enough to see the fine lines by his eyes that said he smiled, sometimes, in a life built to keep him from needing to. "Careful," she told herself. "I think you're used to people who want something from you," she said. "And I don't," a beat of quiet. Something vulnerable feathered across his face and vanished. "What do you want, Ms. Martinez?" "To do my job before Sarah decides I'm a walking HR risk." He glanced toward the hostess stand. Sure enough, Sarah wore the expression of a woman pricing out disaster. He stepped aside with a small, courtly gesture that startled her. "This isn't over," he said softly. "I have questions, and I think you have answers." The way he said her name, like he'd filed it, made her pulse kick. Her world had been safely small for months. Tables, tickets, a subway map. Now it stretched, dangerous, toward a man who collected companies and knew how to look. She finished the shift in a blur of plates and rehearsed smiles, hyper-aware of table 12. When they rose to leave, he paused at her station. "Good evening, Anna," he said, and leaned a fraction closer. "Next time, tell me about Paris." Her blood iced. She hadn't said Paris. Mrs. Blackwood had. He was connecting things she'd carefully unconnected. As he guided his mother toward the door, the brickwork of her anonymity crumbled. He wasn't just curious. He was already pulling threads. "You okay, kid?" Sarah appeared at closing with concern folded into her lines. "You look like you saw a ghost." "I'm fine," Anna lied, counting tips with hands that wouldn't hold still. That Blackwood had you rattled. What was the hand-waving? His mother's deaf. I was relaying her compliments. "Since when do you sign?" "Casual on the surface, fishing under it. Picked up some in college," Anna said lightly. "Nothing fancy." "He left 200, Sarah said, eyes gleaming with equal parts envy and worry. 30 minutes of salmon doesn't tip like that unless he's coming back for more than dinner. Just be careful. Men like that don't play by house rules." Anna nodded mechanically, but Sarah had it wrong. Marcus Blackwood wasn't interested in flirting with a waitress. He was interested in the truth, and that was worse. The subway to Queens felt longer, the tunnel windows reflecting a woman she barely recognized. Flattened, quiet, eyes still scanning for threats that sometimes lived behind her. She climbed 3 flights in a building that smelled of cumin and radiator heat and let herself into a studio where everything had a place because there wasn't room for it not to. Her phone buzzed. Unknown. "Hope you don't mind. I got your number from HR. This is Marcus Blackwood. Thank you for being so kind to my mother. She hasn't stopped talking about you." Of course he did. Men at his altitude didn't ask for doors. Doors opened. The line of violation lit up old nerves. Terror moved in bone deep. She typed polite refusals. She deleted them. She powered the phone down and hid it like a talisman. Under the mattress, a metal lockbox waited where she'd learned to keep it. Out of sight. Close to hand. Inside, a Columbia MBA in its leather folder, a CPA license with her full name spelled right, a binder clip around documents that proved what almost no one believed anymore. She had built things. She still could. Patents, drafts with her name, later filings without it, sat like arguments waiting for a judge. She opened her laptop, the one piece of her old life she'd hidden from the bonfire of creditors and closed accounts, and typed a search she'd avoided for 2 years. David Chen, Pinnacle Financial. The headline that rose made her stomach pitch. Pinnacle Financial announces merger with Blackwood Industries, David Chen and Marcus Blackwood, partners. The floor in her mind dropped. David was a lot of things. Brilliant at performance, ruthless in private, allergic to losing. He wasn't careless. If his company was merging with Blackwood's, there was a reason. Was she the reason? Was this sudden interest a hand extended or a trap set? Her phone, as if it could smell fear, pulsed to life on the dresser where she'd thrown it. Marcus, I can't stop thinking about our conversation. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow? Somewhere we can actually talk. Everything in her wanted to run. She had perfected running until it became a second body. But running cost money she didn't have, and God help her, she was tired. Tired of being background. Tired of the quiet. She typed, erased, typed again. Finally, I work nights. I'm free for lunch, Marcus. Perfect. I'll pick you up at noon. Wear something comfortable. We'll talk a lot. She set the phone down and pressed the heels of her hands to her eyes. This is a mistake, she told herself. Or it's the first correct decision you've made in 2 years. Either way, it will not let you live small again. Morning came gray and cool, the window fogging faintly with her breath. Another text. Marcus, change of plans. Meet me at Columbia. Steps of Low Library. I want to see where you studied. Columbia. He was already laying breadcrumbs along the path of her carefully covered tracks. It felt like the jaws of a trap closing, slow, polite, inevitable. What choice do you have? Running would confirm everything. Staying might redeem something. She pulled the one dress she'd saved from the life that imploded, a simple black that fit like a memory, and zipped herself into a version of who she used to be. Campus was loud with footsteps and the particular glow of people for whom the next thing is always possible. On the steps of Low Library, he sat with 2 coffees, and that contained curious look she now recognized. Daylight changed him. Less armored, the city softened behind him. You found me, he said, standing to hand her a cup. The Good Place by Philosophy, rich and chocolatey. Of course he'd chosen this one. I almost didn't. But you did. He searched her face. Why? Everything in his life likely came with straight answers and good lighting. She thought about lying. Then surprised herself. Because I'm tired of running. Something eased in his posture. From what in particular? Or is it a general policy? What makes you think I'm running? He smiled without teeth. You're 24, Columbia-educated, speaking multiple languages, working nights at a restaurant where you quietly corrected my French under your breath. He lifted a brow. I noticed things. She nearly choked on a laugh. You heard that? I hear everything that matters. He patted the step beside him. She kept a deliberate inch of space. So, bad breakup? Family mess? Student debt the size of Belgium? All of the above, she said. Then, before fear could throttle her, and someone I trusted got very creative with my finances. Someone stole from you, he said, not as a question but as a place to stand. It made something locked inside her tilt toward him despite herself. Everything, she corrected softly. My work, my reputation, my future. I'm not just running from bills. I'm running from a lie that was better funded than I was. He sat quiet for a beat, fingers around his cup. David Chen, he said. Her coffee slid from numb hands, splashing across the stone. How do you... Because I know him. He didn't look away. And if he did this to you, we have a problem. You know him how? It came out too fast, too sharp. He's my business partner. He held her gaze as if bracing for impact. We're about to close the biggest deal of our careers. For a second, the world dimmed at the edges. Of course. Of course the past had found a way to put on an expensive suit and walk back into her life. Of course the man she'd started to almost trust was attached to the one who'd burned it down. This is a setup, she said, getting to her feet. The restaurant, your mother, the texts, he sent you. No. He rose, too, palms open. Anna, I swear he doesn't know I'm here. Whatever he did to you, that wasn't a test drive for this. This, he gestured between them, is me. I don't believe you. Then let me prove it. He pulled out his phone and scrolled. I'm calling him. I'll ask about a Columbia classmate. Watch what he does. She should have walked away, but there was something in his face, steady, oddly vulnerable, that made her stay. He tapped speaker. Marcus, David's voice spilled out, smooth, familiar in a way that made her stomach revolt. Perfect timing. I was just reviewing the merger docs. Everything looks... Quick question, Marcus cut in, calm. I met someone who says she knows you from B school. Anna Martinez, linguistics background. Worked in finance. The silence was a scalpel. Anna could hear him calculating. Anna Martinez, David repeated, pleasant bafflement sliding into place. Doesn't ring a bell. Should it? The lie landed like a hand over her mouth. 3 years of partnership. 2 years of engagement. Erased with the ease of a man deleting a duplicate file. Maybe I misunderstood. Marcus's eyes stayed on her. She seemed sure. Said you worked together. You know how it is, David said, chuckling. Study groups, mixers. People attach themselves to you in memory. I honestly can't place her. Let me know if it comes to you. We'll talk Steinberg later, of course. And Marcus? Be careful about people claiming connections. Happens more than you'd think. The call clicked off. The steps around them filled with the ordinary clatter of other lives going on. Anna felt like she'd been dropped between moments. Fake connections, she said, not recognizing her own voice. That's what our engagement was. You were engaged for 2 years, Marcus said, slow like handling glass. Business partners for 3 before that. She didn't sit. She couldn't. We built Pinnacle together. He stole it. Then he wrote me out and called it mercy. The charges didn't stick, Marcus said, jaw tight. Or you'd be in prison, she finished. He dropped them at the last minute to look noble. It made everyone comfortable with still believing I was guilty. Marcus raked a hand through his hair, wrecking the presentation. That's diabolical. That's David. The laugh that escaped her had no humor in it. And he's your partner. So the question is, what do you do now? He looked at her for a long, even second, then stood and held out his hand. Find out the truth, he said, and make him pay for what he did. Hope was a dangerous animal. It came when called and bit when cornered. She stared at his palm, then up at his face. Something in his eyes made room for belief to breathe. Why? She asked. Why would you risk a deal for someone you barely know? He examined her like he wanted to answer cleanly. Because yesterday a stranger took the time to speak to my mother in the language that gives her a full life. Because you corrected my French under your breath and didn't care if I heard. Because you move like someone who's been diminished by small cruelties and still chooses grace. He took a breath. And because David Chen just lied to me about knowing you, her eyes stung. It had been a long time since anyone believed her without asking for proof first. What if you're wrong? She whispered. What if I'm lying? Then I'm about to make an expensive mistake. His mouth quirked. But I don't think I am, He started down the steps and she found herself following.
Where are we going?
My office. He smiled, a flash of teeth that looked like resolve. There's something I want to show you. People will see me. The old panic rose, practical and sharp. Your reputation? Let me worry about that, he said, stopping so she had to meet his eyes. I care about the truth more than the optics. And I think the truth about David is going to be very interesting. They crossed Broadway together, reflections catching in glass, the billionaire and the ghost of a woman she used to be. The elevator ride to the top of Blackwood Industries was all brushed steel and high quiet. The reception area smelled like leather and unlit candles. Everything was curated to whisper power. Mr. Blackwood, his assistant said, rising, glance flicking over Anna like a searchlight. You're not scheduled. Change of plans. Hold my calls. Full confidentiality. Of course, sir. His office was a study in dark wood and confidence, floor-to-ceiling windows pouring the city at their feet. Anna stood near the door, suddenly aware of how her simple dress telegraphed a different story than the ones told in rooms like this. Drink? He asked, crossing to a bar stocked with bottles that probably had provenance. I'm fine. Her hands were not, but she kept them still. What exactly do you think you can accomplish? Even if I'm telling you the truth, he's still your partner. Can't what? He poured a small measure for himself and didn't touch it. Hold a partner accountable for fraud? The money, she said. There's always money. There's always another deal, he said, voice even. There isn't always another chance to do the right thing. She sat, barely, on the edge of a leather chair. You say that now. Wait until the board calls. My board works for me. Mild tone, steel underlay. He set the glass down untouched and leaned forward. Tell me about the patents. 17 in 2 years, all on algorithmic trading and risk. How many are yours? Air left her. How do you... Due diligence, he said simply. I look at assets. The filing cluster bothered me. So did the gaps in his background relative to the sophistication of the models. He picked up a tablet, thumbed through pages. And you conspicuously absent. Agreements revised. Names erased. Because he scrubbed me, she said. The truth small and huge at once. After he filed charges, he rewrote the world. Made me a ghost in my own work, he steepled his fingers. That's not just ugly. That's criminal. Good luck proving it. He has lawyers who bill in languages I don't speak. So do I. He picked up the phone. Jennifer, Charles Morrison, now, yes, Saturday. Tell him it's urgent. Marcus, don't. She stood too quickly. This will blow up your deal. Good. The word landed like a gavel. If it's built on stolen work, it deserves to blow. You don't know what you're risking. And you don't know what I can lose and still be myself. He came around the desk and stopped a respectful foot away. I could light 10 deals on fire and still not run out of zeros. Integrity is harder to replace. The simplicity of it hurt. When had anyone last chosen principle in her direction? Why are you doing this? It wasn't strategic. It was raw. Because yesterday you could have nodded and walked away, and instead you spent 10 minutes treating my mother like the center of the room, he said. Because you speak 5 languages and pour wine for tips. Because you have an MBA you keep under a mattress. His mouth softened. Because everything about you says someone tried very hard to make you small. And I don't like thieves, tears threatened. She blinked them back on reflex. You'll regret it when the letters start arriving. Let me worry about the letters. He reached up, slowly, as if approaching a skittish thing, and brushed a stray tear with his thumb. The question is, are you ready to fight back? I don't remember how. She hated how true that felt. He took all of it. I know who you are, he said, hands bracketing her face with a warmth that made her want to stand still for once. You built something worth stealing. You're not the story he wrote about you. The only thing you need from me is a reminder. Her phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced. Text from David, he said, mouth flattening. He wants to move Monday up. Cold slid into her. Be careful. He's worse than you think. I know, Marcus said, a dangerous smile ghosting across his face. So am I. What do you need me to do? She asked. surprising herself again. "I need you to trust me," he said. "Can you?" Trust. The word heaved up old wreckage. But looking at him, she felt something tentative and bright push through. "Yes," she said, and meant it. The rain started just as Anna stepped back into the world outside Marcus Blackwood's office tower. The city felt different now, sharper, like she'd tilted some lens and the light struck at new angles. Her reflection in the dark glass of a deli window looked like someone she used to know, a version of herself that wasn't quite gone. The woman who had built things once. Her phone buzzed again. "Marcus, lunch tomorrow." "Don't be late." "Wear something comfortable." The confidence in that last sentence made her stomach twist. He was already assuming her answer. And the worst part? She hadn't said no. The next day she chose the black dress because it felt like armor. It wasn't flashy, but it fit like memory. And sometimes memory was stronger than steel. Columbia's campus was alive with students darting between classes, laughing, arguing, scribbling notes as if the future were a deadline. She hadn't walked these steps since she'd been stripped of everything. And stepping onto the library's stone staircase felt like daring the past to notice her. And there he was, sitting on the steps with 2 coffee cups, casual in dark jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than her rent. "You found me," Marcus said, standing holding out the cup. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," Anna admitted, fingers warming around the coffee. "But you did." His eyes searched hers. "Why?" The obvious answer would have been curiosity or fear, but honesty slipped past her guard before she could stop it. "Because I'm tired of running," Marcus studied her quietly. His face softened in a way she hadn't seen before. "Are you running from something specific? Or just running in general? Why assume I'm running at all?" He gave her a look that said he was used to peeling back veneers. "Anna, you're 24, Columbia-educated, fluent in more than one language, and you're waiting tables in Manhattan. You corrected my French under your breath. You know good wine. You notice details most people miss. Either you're running from something, or you're writing a very convincing novel." Her breath caught. "You heard that?" "I hear more than people think. Occupational hazard." He gestured for her to sit, and when she did, he leaned in, voice lower. "So what's the story? Debt? Family scandal? Someone burned you?" "All of it," she said, and then before she could stop herself, "And someone I trusted stole from me." Marcus didn't blink. "Someone stole everything." Anna's chest tightened. No judgment, no pity, just fact. "Yes." The word hung between them until he said softly, "David Chen." Her coffee slipped from her fingers, splattering across the stone steps. Her voice broke. "How do you know that name?" "Because he's my business partner." Marcus didn't flinch. "We're about to close a deal worth billions." Her world tilted. The air felt too thin to breathe. "This is a setup," she whispered. "Of course it is. The restaurant, your mother, this sudden interest. You're working for him." "No." Marcus's voice was steady. "David doesn't know. Whatever he did to you, this is me, Anna, not him." "I don't believe you." She stood, heart thundering. "Then let me prove it." He pulled out his phone. "Watch." Before she could argue, he hit speaker and dialed. "Marcus," came David's voice. Smooth, charming, painfully familiar. "Perfect timing. I was just reviewing the merger terms." "Quick question," Marcus said. "I met someone who says she knows you. Ana Martinez. Linguistics background, finance, Columbia." Silence. 3, maybe 4 seconds. Long enough for Anna to imagine the calculation happening on the other end. "Ana Martinez," David repeated at last, light and dismissive. "Doesn't ring a bell." Should it? The lie was so clean it almost sounded true. Marcus glanced at Anna. "She seemed sure. Said you worked together on projects." "You know how business school is." David chuckled smoothly. "Lots of study groups, mixers. Maybe we crossed paths. I honestly can't place her. But Marcus, be careful. Plenty of people make false claims to get close to men like us." The line clicked dead. Anna sat frozen, the words reverberating through her like a blade pressed to old scars. Fake connections. That's what their engagement, their company, their 3 years of building a future had been reduced to. You were engaged to him, Marcus said slowly, reading her face. Her voice sounded far away. 2 years engaged. 3 years partners before that. We built Pinnacle together. Every algorithm, every strategy, it was mine. He stole it. And then he stole my life. Marcus's jaw tightened. And now he's my partner. Her laugh came out sharp and hollow. Of course. Men like him never fall alone. They land on someone else's shoulders. He stood suddenly and offered his hand. Then I'll find out the truth. And if he did what you say, I'll make sure he pays. Why? Anna asked. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? Marcus's voice lowered. Because yesterday you could have just smiled at my mother and walked away. Instead, you gave her 10 minutes of being seen. Because you're brilliant and you hide it. Because David lied to me and you didn't. Her throat burned with unshed tears. What if I'm lying? She whispered. Then I'm making an expensive mistake. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. But I don't think I am. He started walking, and without deciding to, Anna followed. Blackwood Industries Marcus's office sat on the top floor of a tower that seemed to scrape at the clouds. Glass and steel everywhere, a skyline spilling through windows tall as cathedrals. Anna stood near the door, suddenly conscious of her simple black dress in a world of marble and leather. Drink? Marcus asked, pouring himself something amber from a crystal decanter. I'm fine. He didn't press. Instead, he settled behind his desk and fixed her with that unnerving, steady gaze. Tell me about the patents. Her breath caught. How do you... Due diligence, he interrupted. 17 patents filed in under 6 months. All for advanced trading algorithms. David doesn't have the background for that, which means someone else did the work. He tilted his head. Someone like you? Anna felt the room tilt. He erased me, she said. The words tasted like old blood. Changed contracts, pulled my name off every application, rewrote the history of who built what. That's criminal, Marcus said. His voice wasn't angry, it was icy. Good luck proving it. He has lawyers for sport. So do I. He reached for his phone. Jennifer, get Morrison and Webb on the line. Urgent! Marcus, no. Anna was on her feet, heart pounding. This will blow up your merger. Good. He set the phone down, meeting her eyes. If it's built on theft, it deserves to blow. Her chest ached. You'll regret this. I can replace money, he said evenly. I can't replace integrity. Her voice trembled. Why are you doing this? Because someone tried very hard to make you small. He stepped closer. And because I don't like thieves. The tears she'd been holding back broke free. He reached up, brushing one away with his thumb, gentle, reverent. The only question left, Marcus said quietly, is if you're ready to fight back. Anna's breath shuddered. I don't know how anymore. He took everything. No. Marcus cupped her face. He took what could be stolen. But he didn't take you. And you, Anna, you're worth fighting for. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Marcus glanced at the screen. Text from David, he said, expression hardening. He wants to move our meeting up to Monday. Says he has exciting new developments. Anna's stomach clenched with ice. Be careful. He's worse than you think. Marcus's eyes glinted, sharp and dangerous. So am I. Monday arrived under a heavy gray sky that seemed to press down on the city. Rain streaked the windows of the cafe where Anna sat, her coffee untouched, her eyes fixed on the glass tower across the street. Somewhere inside, 43 floors above her, Marcus Blackwood was about to sit down with David Chin. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, meeting in 10. Remember, David doesn't know you're involved. Stay safe, Anna typed back quickly. Be careful. He's more dangerous than you think, Marcus. I know. But so am I. The reply steadied her only for a moment. She knew David better than Marcus ever could. She knew the way he could charm a room while twisting the knife under the table, how he could make monsters look like heroes and victims like liars. She'd seen him do it to her, piece by piece, until her career, her reputation, even her ability to trust had collapsed. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup and whispered to herself, Please let him see through the mask. The conference room upstairs. Marcus checked his reflection in the glass wall of the conference room. The tie was straight, the suit perfect, his face calm. He needed calm. Every move in this meeting had to look like routine due diligence, nothing more. If David suspected, well, Marcus already knew what kind of predator he was. "Mr. Blackwood," Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Chen has arrived. Send him in." The doors swung open. David Chen entered with a confident stride, his smile practiced, his handshake firm. His suit was immaculate, his black hair perfectly styled. To anyone else, he looked like success embodied. "Marcus," he said warmly, "thanks for moving this up. I know your schedule's insane." "Not a problem." Marcus clasped the hand, noting the expensive watch, the lack of calluses, just like Anna had described. They sat. Silver coffee service gleamed between them. David poured himself a cup with smooth, deliberate movements. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone friendly, businesslike. "I believe we can accelerate the merger by 6 weeks. My team has identified some additional assets not in the original proposal." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "Additional assets?" "Intellectual property." David's smile widened. "Proprietary algorithms we've been developing. Revolutionary predictive models that forecast market patterns 18 months ahead. It will change portfolio management forever." "Impressive," Marcus said evenly. "Developed in-house?" "Absolutely." David's eyes gleamed with false pride. "My lead researcher, PhD from MIT, has been spearheading the project." "Brilliant, man." "We've been working together for over 3 years." Marcus forced himself not to react. The lie slid out as easily as air. Anna had been right. David was a master of rewriting reality. "I'd like to meet this researcher," Marcus said, jotting a note. David's smile flickered just for an instant. "Unfortunately, he's in Singapore, hands-on with our Asian partners. He's not one for boardrooms, but I can assure you he's behind all of it, of course. Conveniently overseas. Conveniently unreachable." "Well," Marcus said, lifting his coffee cup, "when he returns, I'd like an introduction. In the meantime, I'll need to review the development documentation, testing protocols, architecture, patent filings." "Of course." David typed something into his phone. "I'll have my assistant prepare a full package. Should be on your desk by the end of the week." "Excellent." Marcus leaned back, deliberately casual. "You know, David, trust is the foundation of partnerships. Lies, well, they tend to catch up eventually." David chuckled, his mask firmly in place. "Couldn't agree more." For the next 30 minutes, they talked projections, timelines, expansion. Marcus kept his voice steady, his pen moving, while inside him, rage simmered cold and clean. He'd seen predators before, but the casual way David erased Anna as if she had never existed, as if her brilliance was nothing more than a convenient prop. This was worse. When David finally left, his handshake still warm, his promises still shining, Marcus waited until the elevator doors closed before pulling out his phone. "Get me Charles Morrison," he told Jennifer. "Now." The coffee shop Anna was on her 3rd cup when her phone rang. She answered before the first buzz ended. "How did it go?" "Exactly as you predicted." Marcus's voice came low and edged. He lied about everything. The timeline, the team, the funding. Claimed his lead researcher is a PhD from MIT. And guess where he supposedly is? "Singapore," Anna said bitterly. "Exactly." She closed her eyes. "Did he seem suspicious?" "Not at all. He was practically glowing with his own cleverness." Marcus's disgust came through the line. "Anna, I've met sharks before, but the way he erased you, like you never existed, it's sociopathic. I tried to warn you, and you were right." His tone softened. "How are you holding up?" Anna glanced around the coffee shop. People chatted about exams and office deadlines, sipping lattes under the rain. Normal lives, unshaken lives. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," she admitted. "David doesn't make mistakes. If he's this confident, it's because he already thinks he's won." Marcus was quiet. Then, "You think he suspects us?" "I think David doesn't believe in coincidences. You ask about a Columbia classmate, and days later you're pressing about intellectual property. He'll connect it. He always connects it. Where are you?" "Across the street from your building. Anna, Marcus's voice was tight now. If you're right, you're not safe. If he destroyed you once because you were inconvenient, what do you think he'll do if he sees you as a threat? The chill crept into her bones. Maybe I should disappear. Tonight, leave the city. Change my name again. No. Marcus's reply was firm. Running didn't work before, and it won't now. He'll just hunt you again. This time, you won't be alone. Then what do you suggest? That we force his hand. Make him come to us. Anna's grip on her phone tightened. That's suicide. It's strategy, Marcus countered. Anna, I didn't build a billion-dollar company by retreating. And I'm not letting David Chen intimidate the woman I... He stopped. Anna's heart stuttered. The woman you what? Marcus exhaled. The woman I care about. More than I should, considering it's been 3 days. But it's the truth. Her throat closed with sudden tears. I know it sounds insane, Marcus continued, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Saturday. The way you stood up to me, the way you spoke to my mother, the way you've survived. You barely know me, she whispered. I know enough. His voice was steady. I know you're brilliant, stronger than you believe, and I know I won't let him hurt you again. Anna pressed a trembling hand to her face. What if we can't prove it? What if his lawyers bury us? Then we fight anyway, Marcus said. But Anna, I need you to trust me. Can you? Trust. The word that had been twisted into a weapon against her. The word that had cost her everything, but maybe trust wasn't about certainty. Maybe it was about deciding someone was worth the risk. Yes, she whispered. And this time she meant it. Good, Marcus said. His voice warmed like the first hint of dawn. Because I have a plan. Anna sat in Marcus's office again, her palms pressed flat against the leather armrests of the chair, staring at him as if he'd just suggested she leap off a rooftop. You want me to do what? She demanded. I want you to walk into David Chen's office, Marcus said calmly, pacing behind his desk. Not as the woman he tried to erase, not as a waitress, but as Dr. Anna Martinez, independent consultant in algorithmic trading systems. The expert I've hired to verify his intellectual property. Anna's chest tightened. Marcus, that's exactly what he'll expect. He's probably already rehearsing how to twist any contact from me into something he can use against us. Exactly, Marcus said. He stopped pacing and planted both hands on the desk, leaning toward her. That's what makes it perfect. He expects you to hide. The last thing he's ready for is you walking in, calm and unbroken, demanding answers. It forces him off script. Anna shook her head. Her heart hammered just imagining David's face. It's not just reckless. It's suicide. Not if you're not alone. Marcus's gray eyes burned with intensity. I'll be right there beside you. He'll try to lie, manipulate, turn it back on you, but with me in the room, with my legal team ready to pounce on every inconsistency, he'll make mistakes. And those mistakes will be evidence. Anna wanted to laugh at the audacity, but the sound caught in her throat. The thought of facing David again, of standing across from him after 2 years of fear and silence, made her want to run until her lungs gave out. What if he refuses to meet? She asked. What if he calls security, tries to have me arrested? On what grounds? Marcus countered. For showing up to a business meeting as a consultant? You're not a fugitive, Anna. You were never convicted of anything. David's power over you only works because you still believe you're his victim. Anna stared down at her hands. She hated how true that sounded. Marcus came around the desk, his voice softening. He stopped just in front of her chair and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. I know you're scared. I know the last time you trusted someone, it almost destroyed you. But this isn't the same. This time, you won't be walking in alone. You'll have me. His words sank into her like warmth in a frozen room. She lifted her eyes and found his gaze steady, unflinching, full of something she wasn't sure she deserved. Faith. What if we're wrong? She whispered. What if this destroys your reputation, your company, everything you've built? Then I'll rebuild. His hands moved, cupping her face now, his thumbs brushing lightly across her cheekbones. But Anna, I can't rebuild my integrity if I ignore this. And I can't walk away from you now, not after everything I've seen. The sincerity in his voice almost broke her. Tears pricked her eyes again, but this time they weren't just from fear. I don't know if I can do this, she confessed. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Marcus's voice dropped, intimate and steady. You are. You're stronger than you realize. You built something worth stealing. That means you're someone worth fighting for. And if David Chen thinks he erased you, then it's time we show him how wrong he was. Anna inhaled shakily, trying to steady the chaos inside her. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she heard herself whisper, "Okay, let's do it." Marcus smiled then, slow, fierce, like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. Good, because tomorrow you stop running. The next morning, they stood across the street from Pinnacle Financial's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the heart of the financial district. For Anna, it wasn't just a building. It was a tombstone, a monument to everything she'd lost. She clutched the coffee Marcus handed her, staring up at the structure with 100 emotions tangled in her chest. "I used to love this building," she murmured. "David and I picked it together. We spent nights planning how we'd design the offices, how the company would feel. It was supposed to be our dream." "And it was," Marcus said quietly beside her. "He just stole the credit." "That doesn't erase what you built." Anna turned to him. He looked impossibly composed, his suit cut to perfection, his presence steady, like a man who'd been born to command boardrooms. She, by contrast, felt like she might collapse before even stepping through the door. "Are you sure about this plan?" she asked. "Once we go in there, there's no turning back." "I'm sure," Marcus said simply. "The question is, are you?" Anna thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, confident, ambitious, naive enough to believe hard work protected you. And the woman she'd become since, frightened, diminished, hiding in shadows. Neither version fit her anymore. Standing here now, with Marcus's faith wrapped around her like armor, she realized she wanted to be someone else. Someone forged in fire, stronger because of what she'd endured. She drew a breath. "I'm ready." Marcus's hand brushed the small of her back as they crossed the street together. The lobby was all marble and soft light, designed to exude understated wealth. A security guard at the desk straightened as soon as he recognized Marcus. "Mr. Blackwood." "Good afternoon, sir." "Afternoon, James. We're here to see David Chen." "Of course, sir. 32nd floor." Anna felt James's eyes linger on her, a flicker of recognition. Before he could ask, Marcus said smoothly, "This is Dr. Martinez consulting on our merger. Intellectual property verification." "Of course," James said, his voice neutral again. The elevator ride up felt like an execution march. Each floor ticked past with the weight of inevitability. 20, 25, 30. Her pulse drummed so hard she thought it might echo off the polished steel walls. "Breathe," Marcus whispered, his hand finding hers briefly. "You belong here. This company exists because of your work." The doors slid open into Pinnacle's reception area, sleek and modern. Behind the glass desk sat a young receptionist Anna didn't recognize. David had replaced everyone, wiped away every trace of her. "Mr. Blackwood," the receptionist said smoothly. "Mr. Chen is waiting in the main conference room." Anna's stomach knotted. Each framed article along the hallway wall was like a dagger. Headlines about Pinnacle's rise, awards for innovation, glossy photos of David shaking hands with industry leaders. All lies, all built on her. At the end of the hall, the conference room doors stood open. And there he was, David Chen, perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect smile. The same smile that had once made her heart race, the same one that had destroyed her. "Marcus," he said warmly, spreading his arms as though welcoming an old friend. "Right on time. And you must be Dr. Martinez." His eyes landed on her, and in that instant, Anna saw it. The flicker of shock, the flash of calculation, the split second of fear. Then the mask slid back into place. "Have we met before?" he asked, his tone perfectly polite. "You look familiar." Anna's heart pounded. But instead of fear, what surged up inside her was something sharper. Rage. For 2 years, she'd lived broken. For 2 years, he'd convinced her she was no one. But looking at him now, all she felt was fury. "We've met," she said clearly, walking into the room with her head high. "Though I'm not surprised you don't remember. You've always been very good at forgetting inconvenient people." Marcus closed the doors behind them. The trap was sprung. The silence in the conference room stretched thin, brittle as glass. David Chen's smile didn't falter, but Anna saw the tension in the way he held his jaw, the way his eyes flickered to Marcus before returning to her. "Interesting," he said smoothly, his voice carrying that same calm charm that had fooled investors, judges, and even her once. "I can't imagine where we've met, Dr. Martinez, but if Marcus trusts you, I'm sure you're more than qualified to assist with this review." He gestured to the sleek black folders laid out on the table. "Here's everything you'll need: patent filings, testing documentation, system reports. I hope you'll be impressed." Anna didn't sit. She stood at the edge of the table, looking down at the documents like they were old photographs of a crime scene. She didn't have to read the numbers to know what they were. She recognized the formatting, the notations in the margins, her shorthand. The habits she'd developed during years of late nights and endless coffee. "Impressed?" she said, her voice tight. "Yes, mostly at your ability to copy and paste." David's eyes hardened, just for an instant. "I'm sorry?" "These aren't your algorithms," Anna said, her voice gaining strength. "They're mine. Every model, every line of logic, you took them from me, and then you erased my name." Marcus leaned forward, calm but sharp. "David, you told me last week your lead researcher was a PhD from MIT. Yet these documents are in Anna Martinez's format, her personal system of annotations. Care to explain that discrepancy?" For the first time, David's smile slipped. He recovered quickly, folding his hands on the table. "Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Anna and I did work together briefly." 3 years, Anna snapped. 3 years as partners. You proposed to me, David. You asked me to marry you. We built Pinnacle together. The temperature in the room dropped. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. This was the first time she'd said it out loud in front of David. But David only chuckled softly, shaking his head as if indulging a delusion. "Marcus, you see what I mean?" "She's confused. She worked with me as a junior associate for a short time before well, let's say there were legal issues. I generously chose not to pursue them further. Since then, she's imagined herself the victim of theft. It's very sad." Anna's vision blurred with fury. "You liar." "Anna," David said, voice smooth, controlled, weaponized. "We both know what happened. You overreached, you broke compliance laws, and I covered for you. You should be grateful I didn't press charges. That's not what happened." Anna's voice cracked, her hands curling into fists. "You filed false charges against me to discredit me so you could take everything I built and call it your own. You destroyed my reputation because you knew I'd never fight back. You made me believe I wasn't worth fighting for." David leaned back, feigning pity. "See? She's unstable. Marcus, I'm worried this will complicate our negotiations. We can't move forward if she's involved." Marcus didn't take his eyes off him. "You're worried, David?" His voice was quiet, lethal. "You should be." David's expression flickered. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying," Marcus said evenly, "that I don't enter partnerships with liars. And if even half of what Anna says is true, you're not just a liar, you're a thief." David laughed, but it rang hollow. "Do you have proof?" "All you have is the word of a woman who signed the original drafts of those algorithms." Marcus cut him off, tapping one of the documents. "This page alone contains formulas that predate your company's existence. I know because my due diligence team flagged the timestamp anomalies last week. Care to explain that?" For the first time, David faltered. The mask cracked, a hairline fracture that revealed the predator beneath. "Be careful, Marcus," he said softly. "You don't know what you're walking into. Deals this size, reputations this big. One misstep and it all comes crashing down. You'd risk billions for her? For someone you've known less than a week?" Marcus stood, his presence filling the room. "I'd risk more than money for the truth. And Anna Martinez is worth far more than you ever gave her credit for." Anna's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken about her that way. Not even her parents, not her professors. Certainly not David. She felt the weight of Marcus's words settle into her bones like something she'd been waiting years to hear. David's smile returned, but this time it was colder, dangerous. "You're making a mistake, Marcus. And when this deal collapses, don't say I didn't warn you." Marcus leaned closer, his voice low and lethal. No, David. The mistake was underestimating her. Anna finally sat, pulling the documents toward her. Her hands no longer trembled. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't hiding, wasn't running. She was facing him. You want proof? She said, flipping through the pages with steady hands. I'll show you proof. Every model, every variable, you copied them from me. And I can prove it because you didn't even bother to change the errors. My errors. My fingerprints are all over this work. David's face tightened, the mask slipping again. Marcus smiled coldly. Checkmate. The air inside the Pinnacle Financial Conference Room was thick enough to choke on. Glass walls reflected the city skyline, but it felt like a cage. One David Chen had once built for Anna, now turned back on him. Anna's pulse hammered, but she held her ground. For years, she had rehearsed this moment in nightmares, always waking before she could speak. Now she had found her voice, and there was no going back. Marcus, David said, turning away from her with practiced ease. You're being manipulated. This is what she does. She weaves stories, convinces people she's been wronged. And before you know it, Anna interrupted sharply, you're stripped of everything you built while he smiles for the cameras. David's jaw tightened, but his smile didn't fade. Delusions. Old wounds. She's unstable. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his gray eyes unreadable but his presence commanding. I've seen unstable. Ana Martinez isn't unstable, she's angry. There's a difference, and you've given her plenty of reason for it. Anna felt a flicker of gratitude. Marcus wasn't shielding her, wasn't speaking for her. He was simply refusing to let David's narrative overwrite hers again. She opened the folder David had placed so casually on the table, scanning the pages until her eyes landed on a line of code. She traced it with her finger, forcing herself to breathe. Here, she said. Do you see this subroutine? Marcus leaned over. Yes, this was mine. I created it after 3 straight nights in the Columbia Library, high on espresso and desperation. It's efficient but flawed. I left a redundant loop in by mistake. Marcus frowned. Wouldn't your team have caught that? They did. I caught it, Anna corrected. And I fixed it in the final model. But David filed the patent with this draft, the broken one. My mistake. My fingerprint. Marcus's eyes flicked to David, who was now visibly tense. You left her mistaken? David's smile faltered. Nonsense. These codes were developed in-house. In-house? Anna snapped. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim laptop, the one she'd sworn never to open in public again. Her hands flew across the keyboard, calling up archived files from her encrypted storage. Look. This is the original draft, dated, time-stamped, backed up before you locked me out of the servers. The screen glowed with her old code, the redundant loop staring back like an old scar. Marcus leaned closer, his face hardening. David's mask slipped for a fraction of a second, and Anna caught it. The recognition, the panic. Coincidence, David said quickly, his voice clipped now. Any programmer could make the same mistake. Anna barked out a laugh that was closer to a sob. Any programmer? This is my shorthand, David, my comments. My initials on the test notes. Don't insult me by pretending this could have come from anyone else. For the first time in years, she felt taller than him, stronger. The weight he'd piled on her shoulders all those nights ago no longer crushed her. Marcus closed the folder with a snap that echoed through the room. I've heard enough. He stood, his presence towering over the table. David, this partnership is over. Effective immediately. David shot to his feet. You can't do that. The contracts are void, Marcus said coolly, due to fraud and misrepresentation of assets. I'll have my lawyers draft the termination papers before lunch. You'll regret this, David hissed. The charm was gone now, stripped away to reveal the predator beneath. You'll regret crossing me, both of you. Anna met his eyes, her voice steady. I already regretted trusting you. There's nothing left to lose. David's lips twisted, but before he could fire back, Marcus stepped closer. His voice dropped, quiet but lethal. You erased her once, David. You won't get the chance to do it again. For a long moment, the three of them stood in a triangle of tension. The liar, the survivor, the ally. Then David broke first. He grabbed the folder, shoved it under his arm, and stormed out, the conference room door slamming hard enough to rattle the glass. The silence that followed felt like an earthquake settling. Anna sagged into her chair, her body trembling as the adrenaline ebbed. Marcus crouched beside her, his hand brushing hers gently. "You okay?" She let out a shaky laugh. "Define okay. I just accused my ex-fiancé of corporate theft in front of the man he's trying to merge with." Marcus smiled faintly. "And you did it brilliantly." Anna blinked back sudden tears. "I don't feel brilliant. I feel like I'm about to collapse." "That's normal." His voice was soft now, stripped of the hard edge he'd used on David. "But Anna, what you did, that was power. Taking your voice back, standing your ground. I've seen CEOs crumble under less pressure." She stared at him, at the quiet conviction in his eyes, and for the first time in years, she believed she might not be broken beyond repair. "Marcus," her voice wavered. "What if he comes after me again?" "He's not going to let this go. You know that." "I know," Marcus admitted. He rose, offering his hand. "But he won't be coming after you alone this time. He'll have to go through me." Something inside Anna cracked open at those words. Hope. Raw. Terrifying. Beautiful. They left the conference room together, Marcus's hand steady at her back as they moved through Pinnacle's gleaming halls. The receptionist's eyes widened at the sight of Anna, but Marcus didn't pause. He strode forward like a man who owned not just the building, but the truth itself. By the time they reached the street, the October air felt like fire in Anna's lungs. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath until now. "Where to?" Marcus asked. "Anywhere but here," Anna whispered. So he led her down the block to a small cafe tucked between glass towers. It was the kind of place Anna would have chosen on her own. Quiet, understated, with warm wood and the smell of cinnamon in the air. They sat in the back, far from curious eyes. Anna wrapped her hands around the coffee mug the waiter placed before her, letting the heat seep into her skin. For a long time, neither spoke. The city hummed outside the windows, oblivious to the storm that had just broken above it. Finally, Anna found her voice. "Do you believe me?" Marcus's gaze was steady. "Yes," no hesitation. "None." She let out a shaky breath, her shoulders sagging. "I don't know what to do next. I've been hiding for so long." Disappearing felt safer than fighting. "But now you've seen what happens when you stand up," Marcus finished. "Anna, David thrives on silence, on people being too afraid to confront him. Today you shattered that. You reminded him you're not invisible." Her throat tightened. "But he'll retaliate." "Of course he will." Marcus didn't sugarcoat it, and she appreciated that. "But this time he's exposed. My legal team will tear through every patent, every document. If he pushes back, we'll push harder." "We," she echoed. His hand covered hers across the table, warm and firm. "We. You're not alone in this anymore." Her heart ached at the simple word. Alone had been her reality for so long. Alone in the subway, alone in the courts of rumor, alone in her apartment with nothing but regrets. "The idea of we felt like sunlight after endless night, Marcus," she whispered, unable to finish. He smiled gently. "Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. If you want your name back, your patents, your life, you're going to have to fight. Harder than you ever have." Anna tightened her grip on the mug, her reflection trembling in the dark surface of the coffee. Fight. The word terrified her. But for the first time in years, it also thrilled her. "I don't know if I remember how," she admitted. "You will," Marcus said with quiet certainty. "And I'll be right there with you." That night, back in her Queens apartment, Anna dug the lockbox out from beneath her mattress. The contents stared up at her, her MBA, her CPA license, the patents that should have carried her into boardrooms instead of back rooms of restaurants. For years, these had been relics of a past life, painful reminders of everything she'd lost. Now they felt like weapons. Proof. Power. She set them out on the table carefully, like pieces of herself she was stitching back together. Her phone buzzed. "A message from Marcus. We'll start tomorrow. My lawyers are ready. David won't know what hit him. Sleep if you can. You've earned it. Anna smiled faintly, a fragile thread of warmth winding through the fear. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel like prey. She felt like a woman preparing for war, and David Chen had no idea what was coming. Morning light spilled across the city like molten gold. But for Anna Martinez, the day began with the kind of dread that settled into her bones. She stood at her kitchen window in Queens, clutching a chipped mug of coffee, staring at the skyline where Pinnacle's glass tower gleamed like a blade. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, David's smile returned, the cold, practiced curve of a man who thrived on manipulation. She could still hear his voice echoing in the conference room. "You'll regret crossing me." The words had clung to her like smoke. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Marcus. She snatched it up, her hands trembling despite herself. "Marcus, my driver's outside. We're meeting the legal team at 9. Bring every document you have." Anna glanced at the table where she'd laid out her life the night before. Patents, licenses, copies of old emails, fragments of a career erased. It didn't look like much, but it was everything she had. She slid the papers into a folder, slipped on her coat, and left her apartment, locking the door behind her with a finality that felt heavier than the deadbolt. Marcus's black car was waiting at the curb, polished until it reflected the gray morning sky. When Anna slid into the back seat, the scent of leather and his cologne wrapped around her like something dangerously comforting. "You look exhausted," Marcus said gently. "I've been better," she admitted, dropping the folder onto her lap. "But I'm ready." He studied her face for a long moment before nodding. "Good, because today is about laying the foundation. Once Morrison and Associates have your evidence, they'll know how to move forward. And if it's not enough," Marcus's jaw tightened, "then we'll make it enough." The conviction in his voice made her throat ache. She wasn't used to people fighting beside her, certainly not people like him. The law offices of Morrison and Associates were perched high above Midtown, a cathedral of glass and steel where power moved in hushed voices and expensive suits. Charles Morrison himself was waiting when they stepped into the conference room. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, his handshake was firm enough to bruise. "Mr. Blackwood," he greeted, before turning to Anna. "And you must be Dr. Martinez." Anna blinked. She hadn't been called that in years. The title felt foreign and yet thrilling, like a piece of herself she'd thought was lost. "Yes," she said softly. "I am," Morrison gestured to the table. "Let's see what we're working with." Anna laid out the documents, her hands trembling only slightly. Morrison and his team leaned in, scanning the patents, the notes, the emails she'd salvaged. For 20 minutes, the only sounds were the rustle of paper and the quiet clicking of pens. Finally, Morrison looked up. "It's strong," he said. "Not airtight, but strong. The metadata on these files is compelling, especially if we can verify the backups. The emails. Well, they're circumstantial, but together they form a pattern." Anna exhaled slowly. "So we have a chance?" Morrison's eyes narrowed. "We have more than a chance. We have a case. And if David Chen thought he could bury you, he's about to learn otherwise." Relief flooded her, sharp and dizzying. For the first time, someone other than Marcus believed her, but Morrison wasn't finished. "There's a risk. Men like Chen don't go down quietly. He'll fight. He'll smear you. He'll try to spin this into a story of a bitter ex-fiancé looking for revenge. Are you prepared for that?" Anna froze. The thought of her past, dragged through the mud again, made her stomach twist. She glanced at Marcus. His gaze was steady, unwavering. "Yes," she said finally, her voice firm. "I've been silent for too long. If he wants a fight, he'll get one." Marcus's lips curved in the faintest smile. By noon, the plan was in motion. Morrison's team would file injunctions to freeze Pinnacle's pending patents until questions of ownership were resolved. They would also prepare a lawsuit, corporate theft, fraud, misrepresentation. But Anna knew David wouldn't wait quietly. And she was right. Her phone buzzed again as she and Marcus stepped out of the building into the cold air. This time it wasn't Marcus's name on the screen. It was a number she hadn't seen in years, her chest constricted. David. Against every instinct, she answered. Anna. His voice purred through the speaker, smooth and venomous. We need to talk. There's nothing left to say, she replied, her voice sharper than she felt. Oh, but there is. You've involved lawyers. You've involved Marcus. Very reckless. You're walking into a storm you can't control. Anna clenched the phone tighter. You don't control me anymore, a low chuckle. Don't I? You think a few old files and Marcus Blackwood's money can erase what people believe about you? I own the narrative, Anna. I always have. Her vision blurred with anger. Not anymore. Silence. Then his voice hardened. If you don't back down, I will destroy you. Again. And this time, Marcus won't be able to save you. The line went dead. Anna lowered the phone, her hand shaking. Marcus's face darkened. What did he say? That he'll destroy me again. Marcus's jaw clenched, fury sparking in his gray eyes. He won't get the chance, but Anna wasn't so sure. David had resources, power, connections, and he had already proven he was willing to use all of them. That evening, Marcus insisted she stay at his penthouse. It's safer, he said simply when she protested. David knows where you live. It's only a matter of time before he tries to rattle you. Let him find your apartment empty. Anna didn't want to admit how much that scared her, but she agreed. The Blackwood penthouse was nothing like her Queens apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto the city lights. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and every surface whispered wealth. Yet Marcus's presence made it feel less like a showpiece and more like a sanctuary. He poured her a glass of wine and handed it to her as they stood on the balcony overlooking Manhattan. The wind tugged at her hair, cool and bracing. Are you scared? He asked quietly. She nodded. Terrified. So am I, he admitted. She turned, startled. You? I'm not afraid of losing money, Marcus said, his voice low. I'm afraid of what he might do to you. David Chen doesn't just fight in boardrooms. He plays dirty. And I don't want you caught in the crossfire. Anna's throat tightened. I've been living in the crossfire for 2 years. The only difference now is that I'm not alone. Marcus's eyes softened, and he reached for her hand. You're never going to be alone again. The words hit her harder than any threat David could deliver. For the first time, she let herself lean into the warmth of Marcus's touch, the strength in his presence. For the first time, she let herself hope. The next day proved David was already retaliating. Headlines blared across financial news sites. Disgraced former associate targets Pinnacle with false claims. Anna's face stared back at her from a photo she didn't even remember being taken, splashed beside words like unstable, vindictive, discredited. Her stomach dropped. Oh, God. Marcus tossed the paper aside, fury in every line of his body. Smear campaign. Classic Chen. But people will believe it, Anna whispered. They always do. Not this time, Marcus said firmly. This time you're fighting back. He pulled out his phone. Jennifer, get our PR team in here, today. Anna watched him move with decisive energy, and for the first time, she realized Marcus wasn't just fighting for her in boardrooms and legal documents. He was willing to fight for her reputation, her name, her dignity, and maybe, just maybe, her heart. That night, Anna lay awake in the guest room of the penthouse, staring at the city lights beyond the glass. The fear was still there, sharp and relentless. But under it was something new, resolve. David Chen might have stolen her past, but he wasn't going to steal her future. Not while she had a voice, not while she had Marcus at her side. For the first time in years, she whispered into the dark, not as a prayer but as a promise. I'm not running anymore. The morning of the hearing arrived with a cold, steel-gray sky pressing down on Manhattan. Rain streaked the windows of the courthouse like tears. But Anna Martinez stood beneath its heavy stone columns with her chin lifted. Her folder of evidence clutched in her hands. For 2 years, she had hidden in the shadows of Queens. Now, she was walking into the heart of her enemy's empire, ready to fight. Marcus was beside her, tall and steady, his presence a shield she hadn't known she needed until now. He adjusted the lapel of his charcoal suit and glanced at her. You ready? Anna's throat was tight, but her voice was clear. Yes, for once I'm ready. He smiled faintly, pride flickering in his gray eyes. Then let's end this. Inside, the courtroom was a theater of tension. Reporters filled the back rows, their pens poised like weapons. Flashbulbs popped as David Chen swept in, immaculate in a navy suit, his smile polished to perfection. He looked every bit the brilliant CEO the media adored, calm, charming, untouchable. But when his eyes met Anna's just for a second, the mask cracked. His gaze was ice, sharp and venomous. He took his seat across the aisle, flanked by his high-powered legal team. Anna forced herself not to look away. For years, she'd flinched under that gaze, but not today. Today, she would meet it with steel. The judge entered, and the room rose. Proceedings began. David's lawyers spoke first. Their voices smooth, rehearsed, dripping with confidence. Your Honor, what we have here is a tragic case of a disgruntled former employee attempting to extort a legitimate corporation. Dr. Martinez, though she never held such a title in any professional capacity related to Pinnacle, was dismissed years ago for misconduct. She now seeks to rewrite history, aided by Mr. Blackwood, who clearly has a financial motive to derail a merger of this scale. Lies. So many lies, spoken as though they were gospel. Anna's fists clenched, nails digging into her palms. Morrison, calm and deliberate, rose to reply. Your Honor, what we have here is a pattern of fraud and theft. Evidence will show that Dr. Martinez co-founded Pinnacle Financial and co-developed its core technology. We will prove that Mr. Chen systematically erased her contributions, falsified records, and filed patents using her stolen work. The truth cannot be erased as easily as a name on a document. The judge nodded, motioning for Anna to take the stand. Her heart pounded as she walked forward. The room seemed to tilt, a blur of faces and cameras, but when she sat and swore her oath, a calm settled over her. This was her chance. Dr. Martinez, Morrison began, his voice gentle. Can you describe your role in founding Pinnacle Financial? Anna swallowed, her gaze steady. I co-founded the company with David Chen. For 3 years, we developed risk assessment algorithms together, algorithms based on my graduate research at Columbia. I was the lead architect of the models that became the foundation of Pinnacle's success. And what happened to your position in the company? Anna's voice tightened. David systematically erased me. He filed fraudulent charges, rewrote partnership agreements, and altered patent applications to remove my name. By the time he was done, it was as though I had never existed. She opened her folder, her fingers trembling only slightly as she held up a printout. This is my original code, dated 6 months before Pinnacle filed its first patent. It contains my annotations, my shorthand, and my error, the redundant loop I fixed in later versions. David filed the patent with this flawed version. My mistake became his evidence. Morrison nodded, letting the weight of her words sink in. And do you have proof of your engagement to Mr. Chen, which would establish your close relationship during this period? David's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled. Anna lifted a photograph, herself and David at Pinnacle's launch party, his arm around her, her engagement ring glittering under the lights. Yes, we were engaged. Our partnership was both professional and personal. I trusted him with everything, my work, my future, my heart, and he stole all of it. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she held her chin high. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Cameras flashed. David leaned forward, his smile sharp. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. Romantic entanglements have no bearing on intellectual property rights. The judge's gaze was cold. Sit down, Mr. Chen. You'll have your turn. For the first time, David's composure faltered. Cross-examination was brutal. David's lawyers tried to shred her credibility. They painted her as unstable, desperate, vindictive. They brought up her waitressing job, sneering as if serving food made her incapable of brilliance, but Anna stood her ground. Every insult, every twisting of truth, she met with calm facts and steady answers. Finally, it was David's turn to take the stand. He glided forward with the confidence of a man used to winning. His voice was smooth, his answers polished. He denied everything. Denied their partnership, denied her authorship, denied their engagement. But then Marcus's lawyers brought out the bombshell. "Mr. Chen," Morrison said, holding up a patent file. "This document was altered 6 months after Dr. Martinez's departure. Metadata shows her name was removed and replaced with yours." "Can you explain that?" David hesitated. "Just a fraction of a second, but enough. I don't recall," he stammered. "There must be a clerical error." The courtroom erupted. A CEO who didn't recall the filing of his company's most valuable asset? It was unthinkable, Morrison pressed. "And what about this email, in which you asked Dr. Martinez to explain the technical specifications you supposedly developed? How could you not understand your own code?" David's face paled. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time, the mask slipped completely. The predator was exposed. By the time the hearing ended, the tide had turned. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions, their tone different now, hungry for scandal, for truth. Anna stepped out into the rain with Marcus at her side, her heart pounding, her clothes damp, but her spirit alight. "You were incredible," Marcus murmured, shielding her with his umbrella. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That's what made it powerful," he said. "You didn't let fear silence you. You fought." Her chest tightened with something fierce and fragile all at once. "We fought." He smiled, and in that moment the storm didn't matter. Weeks passed. Investigations deepened. Reporters dug into Pinnacle's records. Morrison's team unearthed mountains of evidence. Emails, backups, drafts David had thought buried. The final blow came when a former employee stepped forward, testifying that she'd been ordered to alter documents, to erase Anna's name. The case shattered wide open. Headlines screamed across the city. Pinnacle CEO accused of fraud. Stolen patents exposed. Martinez versus Chen. The truth revealed. And then, at last, the verdict. David Chen was convicted of corporate fraud, theft of intellectual property, and falsification of documents. 5 years in federal prison. Anna sat in the courtroom as the sentence was read, tears streaming down her face. Not of sorrow, but release. The weight she had carried for 2 years slipped from her shoulders. Beside her, Marcus reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "It's over," he whispered. She turned to him, her voice breaking. "No, it's just beginning." 6 months later, Anna stood in Marcus's Tribeca penthouse, the morning sun painting the city in hues of gold and rose. On the counter lay the day's paper. Pinnacle founder sentenced. Martinez Technologies breaks profit records. Her company. Her name. Restored. Marcus stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Still reading about him?" "Sometimes I have to remind myself it's real," she said softly. He turned her gently, looking down at her with that steady, fierce affection she'd come to rely on. "This is real. You won. You rebuilt. And you didn't just survive. You triumphed." Tears filled her eyes again. But they were happy this time. "Anna Martinez," Marcus said, his voice dropping. "You've taught me that integrity matters more than profit. That truth is worth every risk. And you've taught me what it means to love without agenda. So now I have to ask." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. He knelt right there in the kitchen where they'd spent countless nights planning, fighting, dreaming. Anna gasped as he opened it. A ring, simple, elegant, timeless. "Will you marry me?" Her vision blurred with tears, her heart soaring. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, with laughter breaking through the tears. "Yes, Marcus, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, his hand steady, his eyes shining. Then he kissed her, and for the first time in years, Anna felt whole. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, David Chen sat behind prison bars, powerless at last. But here, in the light-filled kitchen, Anna Martinez was free. Not just free, reborn. Stronger, braver, and finally ready to embrace the life, the love, and the future she had fought so hard to reclaim.